Now think about the last time you snapped at someone. You got irritable for no reason at all. You felt anxious, you were unfocused, and maybe a little bit hopeless. And you couldn't figure out why you felt like that. Now think about the last time you actually ate. There's a good chance that the two things are actually more connected than you think. Now today we're going to look at what science says about hunger and mood. Why low blood sugar doesn't just make you physically uncomfortable, but generally can actually alter your emotional state, your decision making, and even how you perceive other people. And more importantly, we're going to be talking about what you can actually do about it. Now, most of us have used the word hangry as a joke, but in 2018, researchers at the University of North Carolina published one of the first peer-reviewed studies formally examining if this is a real psychological phenomenon. And what they found is that hunger was significantly associated with greater feelings of anger, irritability, and lower pleasure, even after controlling for other emotional variables. The effect was consistent across the lab settings and even real-world daily tracking. So what's actually happening biologically? Your blood glucose drops. Your brain, which runs exclusively on this glucose, starts to sense a kind of threat. And when the brain perceives a threat, it activates the same stress response system that it will use for any sort of danger. This is the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, otherwise known as the HPA axis. Now this triggers the release of cortisol, which is a stress hormone, and adrenaline. So this is your classic stress hormone mixed together with other things and amplifies emotional reaction. Small frustrations now feel larger, patience gets shorter, and your threat detection system becomes hypersensitive. There's also a neurochemical overlap worth noting. Low blood sugar reduces the ability of something known as tryptophan, which is the precursor to serotonin. Now, serotonin is your primary mood stabilizing neurotransmitter. So less tryptophan, less serotonin, and less serotonin is one of the most well-established contributors to being irritated, anxiety, and having low mood. So hangry isn't just a personality key issue, it's actually a measurable psychological and physiological cascade. Now let's go a level deeper, because the glucose-brain relationship is actually more nuanced than most people realize. Your brain roughly accounts for only 2% of your body weight, but uses about 20% of your total energy, and it has no glucose storage of its own. It means it's entirely dependent on what's circulating in your bloodstream at the moment. So when that glucose supply dips, the brain doesn't just feel sluggish, it starts prioritizing. So higher cognitive functions, things like impulse control, emotional regulation, and long-term thinking, now those are expensive on glucose. So the prefrontal cortex, which governs all of these, gets deprioritized when glucose is low. A 2011 study published in the Proceedings of National Academy of Sciences found that judges made significantly harsher legal decisions right before meal breaks. The researchers attributed this partly to decision fatigue and glucose depletion. So when the brain is running low, it defaults to a much simpler, much more automatic response, which in emotional contexts often means a more reactive, less measured ones. So this is why hunger doesn't just make you grumpy, it can actually affect your judgment, affect your empathy, and even how you interpret other people's facial expression. A 2012 study in the Psychological Science found that hungry participants were more likely to rate ambiguous facial expressions as angry as compared to participants who ate. So you're not just feeling worse, you're actually seeing the entire world differently from a different lens. So here's where it really gets interesting for those already dialing into your nutrition. It's not just eating that causes these effects, it's blood sugar instability. And that includes the glucose crash that usually follows a glucose spike. Meaning if you're eating a high glycemic meal, think of things like refined carbs, sugary drinks, or even ultra-processed food, your blood sugar rises rapidly, triggering a large insulin response. Now, insulin binds to your sugar, does its job, reduces sugar in your blood system, and now it crashes, leaving you with a lower blood sugar than you started with. Now, this is what we call reactive hypoglycemia. And what's the result? That results in a post-lunch fog. Roughly about 3 p.m., your energy starts to crash. And the irritability that starts roughly about 90 minutes after a meal. A 2019 review in Nutrients found that dietary patterns high in refined sugars were often associated with significantly high rates of depression and anxiety symptoms. So these are not just short-term issues, but actually very longitudinal issues as well. So the relationship between blood sugar volatility and mood dysregulation is increasingly well supported in all scientific literatures. So the key insight here is stability matters more than absolute levels. Means that a slightly lower but stable blood glucose tends to be better for your mood and cognition than those huge swings, glucose up, glucose down, and up again. So what do you actually want to do with all this information? Now, here's actually 5 evidence-informed strategies to keep your blood sugar and your mood stable throughout the entire day. Now, step 1 is to prioritize protein and fats as your first meal. Protein and dietary fats slow down gastric emptying and then reduces those glucose spikes. So starting your day with like eggs, Greek yogurt, nuts, and even a protein shake rather than a cereal or toast makes it better for your blood glucose. Research shows that if your post-meal glucose is stable due to high protein breakfast, it's much better for you. Now, number 2, don't let yourself starve. Because by the time you feel ravenous and you really want to eat, your cortisol and adrenaline has already been released. So if you're doing like intermittent fasting or you're eating in a very small window, now that's fine. But be intentional about when you actually break the fast. Don't walk into a high-stakes meeting or a difficult conversation when you haven't eaten. Number 3, eat fiber with your carbs. Fiber slows down glucose absorption, and so when you're eating carbs, and most people do, pair them together with vegetables or even a fiber supplement. Even something as simple as eating a salad before your main meal has been shown in studies to reduce postprandial glucose spikes. That means that post-food glucose spikes by up to 30%. Number 4, walk after your meal. A brief 10 to 15 minute walk can actually significantly improve your glucose clearance by using muscular glucose uptake independent of insulin. That means that your muscles are actually using up the insulin. A 2022 meta-analysis in sports medicine confirmed its effectiveness for reducing post-meal glucose spikes. And number 5 is you need to track your patterns. Now, if you're really serious about this, a continuous glucose monitor would actually be good for you. Now, use it just for a couple of weeks because it gives you real-time feedback about what kind of food, what kind of meal timings are actually best for you, and whether your lifestyle factors helps destabilize your blood sugar. So you have a biohacking edge, which is your own personal data. So here's the takeaway. Your mood isn't just a product of your mindset, it's actually a product of your biology as well. And your biology is shaped in very real measurable ways, measured by what you eat, when you eat, and how stable your blood glucose is in between meals. So the next time you feel irritable, anxious, or even emotionally off, before you start analyzing your relationships or your stress levels, ask yourself a very simple question. When did I last eat and what did I eat? Now, sometimes the most sophisticated optimization is the most basic one. So if you found this useful, please subscribe to my channel, The Optimized Human, whereby we break down the science of performance, longevity, and the well-being every week without the hype. Drop a comment below because I want to know, have you noticed a clear connection between your eating patterns and your mood? Now let's talk about it. I will see you in the next one.